The Susan Brender Show is a radio show online broadcasted on YouTube across the United States and globally. The show features guests who speak about health, spirituality, entertainment, and a host of subjects to enlighten people across the nation. Listen to the show that empowers women and men alike and highlights those who have made a difference. I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today, I am so pleased to have Christina Flach on my show. You know, Christina is a CEO and founder of Pretty Girl Makeup, and she's got a lot of stories to tell us about how that got started and a story a little bit about her husband and the grief situation that she's gone through. So with that in mind, I want to welcome Christina to the Susan Brender Show, and I hope that you can give us a little bit more information about who you are.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for having me on your show today. Very nice of you. So my name is Christina Flach. I'm the CEO and founder of Pretty Girl Makeup. I'm also a celebrity makeup artist. I'm represented by Artist Services in San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles. I'm a mother of 5. I was also married to Ken Flach. He was the number one doubles team in the world in the 80s and 90s. They won a gold. He and his partner, Rob Seguso, won a gold medal in Seoul and U.S. Open and Wimbledon. They were on the Davis Cup team for 9 years. He had an amazing career. So Ken and I got married in 2010, and he started some barbecue restaurants, and we were very happily married, and our children all got along. It was really great. And he got bronchitis. He got a cold, which turned into bronchitis, which turned into pneumonia. We had called Kaiser Permanente, which was our medical insurance at the time. Their protocol is that you call into an advice nurse, and then they advise whether a doctor will see you or treat you over the phone. Ken and I were both on the phone at the time, and I said that I'd never seen my husband so sick. He was spitting up mucus from his nose and his throat, and it was horrible. He said that he felt like he had glass in his chest. He had a fever. Oh. He was just feeling terrible. They had a doctor, John Culbertson, call Ken, who was his primary care doctor at the time, and he diagnosed him with, he prescribed cough medicine with codeine and an inhaler and no antibiotic. The problem with that, however, is that cough medicine with codeine, we think it's going to be great if you're going to go to sleep and you're going to wake up in the morning and feel, so much better. That's actually the exact opposite. Cough medicine with codeine suppresses your breathing to the point that if you have an infection and there's no antibiotic to counteract it, it will grow at a rate that you can't turn it around. And that's what happened with Ken. So in the morning when he woke up, he was so much worse that I could hear the fluid in his lungs. I knew that it had turned to pneumonia, which I couldn't believe. So I rushed him to the Kaiser Permanente emergency in San Rafael, California. He walked in. He was spitting up blood. They brought him into the emergency room, tried to stabilize his breathing with 3 different types of oxygen. And the doctor called me out and said, of the room, and said that, Ken needed to be intubated, which he said was basically that they were going to put Ken under, clear out his lungs, and that he'd be able to, the infection would clear out. And I thought that made perfect sense. However, He did not tell me that that was life support. And, I told Ken that, that he was going to go under. I did not tell him that was life support. That was the last time that Ken and I spoke to each other then. So his infection had turned into sepsis. And so after they did not give Ken an antibiotic for another 3.5 hours. So now there was just 0 chance of survival for Ken. The thing with sepsis is that it's a blood infection, and it attacks all of your organs, your heart, your kidneys, your lungs, everything. It shuts them all down. So that was on a Thursday that I took him to the emergency. By Monday, all his appendages, his arms and his legs, had turned black. So when I brought his specialist in to see what we were going to do about that situation, they said, well, if he survives, he would have to have his arms and legs amputated. And at that point, I knew, oh my gosh, yes, it was terrible. At that point, I realized that he wasn't going to survive. And and even if he had survived, there was no way I was going to cut off his arms and his legs.
Right.
My husband was very active. He was only 54 years old. He loved to play golf. He is an amazing father, a wonderful husband. He was just an extraordinary person. And so I knew we had to make that decision of taking him off life support, which was horrible for myself and our children. So after he passed, the Sepsis Alliance reached out to me to see if I'd be willing to, raise awareness and, use Ken's likeness for, raising awareness for people that don't know about sepsis, because we certainly didn't know about sepsis before this happened. So I said, yes, I absolutely would. My son, Bo, had passed away. He was 4.5 months old on Christmas Day. And so I had started an educational fund at a school called the Northern Lights School in Oakland, California. It is a private school for minority children that is, it runs basically on grants and donations. So it's an amazing school. They have a 98% success rate of their students going on to college and graduating, which is, even better than most private schools of wealthy, families. So I knew that when Ken passed, I had gone through an incredibly difficult time when my baby passed away, and I knew I was in a very dark place. I started taking, sleeping pills just to cope for about a month. My friends came to me and said, okay, we know you're incredibly sad, but you've got 4 other children, and you need to get your life together. You cannot just wallow in your grief. Like, enough's enough. And they were right. So after going through that process, I realized that when Ken passed, and I knew that if I went down that dark hole again, it was not going to be good for anyone. So I woke up every morning. I renewed my faith in God. I meditated. I went to yoga. I hiked. I just, I was raising awareness for sepsis and obviously grieving and with my children. So I felt like it was a really good thing, a positive thing to do. I feel that when you have loved ones, oftentimes people don't want to speak of them, or they want to just be miserable in grief in a dark, negative way. And so now it's so funny being a makeup artist and a CEO, and now I'm speaking about grief and sepsis awareness, which, is fantastic. I'm happy that I'm able to do that. My perspective on grief is different than quite a few people, I'm assuming. One of my best friends, Eva, took me to a grief camp at Canyon Ranch. And there was this amazing woman rabbi there named Sherry Hirsch. And she had written this book called We Plan and God Laughs. And that was basically my life. I had my life very planned out. I was happily married to the love of my life. My children were great. My work was doing amazing. I had everything was perfect. And then it wasn't.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, if you don't mind. Grief is different for different people. Some people do it in certain ways that are different than, I'm saying the word different too many times, but the point is that with your grief, which was really, what can we say about that? It's like a horrible, horrible situation that you went through. But you talked about dealing with grief, and I want to understand, and I want our audience to understand, when you go through what you went through, how you dealt with it. Because I can't even imagine something like that. So tell our audience and go through the process of what grief was for you.
Okay. My mother had passed away when I was 20. My son Bo passed away when I was 40. And Ken passed away when I was 50. So I just knew, I knew that the third time I went through this, I was going to have to do it very differently than before, because my children, depend on me, and my people I work with, and my friends. So after going to grief camp and reading this book, We Plan and God Laughs by Rabbi Sherry Hirsch, we have a choice every morning when we wake up. We can choose to be in a good mood and happy and do positive things for the universe, or we can be depressed and grumpy and foul and just negative. We really do have a choice. So my choice every morning, even though believe me, there are plenty of mornings I wake up and I don't want to get out of bed and I don't want to do anything, and I just say, I just tell myself, Christina, I love you. You're going to have a great day. And I think of 3 things, or actually 4 things. I'll just say my children. I say all their names. I wish them love and happiness. And I get out of bed and I get on with my day. I am very disciplined. I eat very well. I drink, first thing in the morning, water with vinegar, Bragg's apple cider vinegar, and my supplements, and I drink tea and green juice. I make sure that I go on a walk or hike, I do yoga, Pilates. So I do that every day. I eat well, and then I get on with, running my company, or if I'm on a photo shoot. I was, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, I was down in Los Angeles doing a TV show for Fox with Isaiah Washington called Kitchen Talk. And so,
Wonderful.
That is my day. But back to the grief. So I just feel that when people pass, that they go up to heaven, and they are our angels, and they are watching over us. And I feel that it would be incredibly hard to be up there looking down upon us, my mom, my grandparents, my son, my husband, and to see that I was just not living life to its fullest anymore and being productive. So for me, I honor my, Ken and Bo and my mother and all my angels in heaven by trying to be my highest self and doing things that are going to make the world a better place. And by, raising awareness for sepsis, helping, if I can help someone deal with grief in a different way, and that was something that they mentioned at Canyon Ranch at the grief camp, was that everyone grieves differently, and no one's grief is worse than someone else, because there were people in my group that, were talking about their Aunt Harriet or their dog that had passed away. And, they said, after they had heard my story, they said, okay, why are we even here? Her thing's so much worse. And the rabbi said, absolutely not. No one's grief is worse than someone else's. So that's one thing I want people to know. However, we can decide how we want to honor our loved ones. I personally feel really great about my son, Bo, because, and then you have the aspect of a child that's passing. So people really don't want to talk about that oftentimes. But I feel that my son, Bo, he's a twin. His twin's name is Ben. I feel that I started a garden with my friend Lisa Zimmer. She's a principal at the Edna McGuire School in Mill Valley, California. We started an outdoor classroom called the Bo Friedman Outdoor Classroom and Garden. And there's this amazing garden that, there's fruit trees and chickens and every vegetable you can imagine, depending upon the season. And for me, I think the greatest thing for children to learn at a young age is to grow vegetables and to fall in love with eating well. And the best way for kids to do that is to grow them themselves and to try, to pick the tomato and a green bean and taste it right off of the vine.
Yeah, Christina, I have to interrupt you because I want to tell you a story, too, about when you talk about gardening. I had a friend who used to take care of an autistic young woman. And to sum it up in very, very quickly, she took her to a farm one day and she showed her seeds. And she put the seeds in this young woman's hands. And the young woman bent down, put it in the ground, and she jumped up and squealed and said, she didn't talk. She didn't have the ability to talk, but she yelled and screamed with a happy, happy face. That is what gardening does. It transforms people in different ways. And I think that's a great piece of advice that you give to people to tell their children, let's get a little nature in our life. Let's do something that is a little different, right?
Absolutely. And even now with, the coronavirus going on, we're shelter in place. I'm very blessed. I live in California and I have a really pretty garden. And, I normally go to the market every week and get my flowers, but, I'm not going as often. And so I'm going out into my garden and picking leaves, different branches and flowers and making arrangements in my house. And that gives me joy to see some, some color and beauty. And I think, I like candles that smell lovely, and I play music that's soothing to my ear. So I really feel that we can control, even especially during this coronavirus time, that we can make our homes be the most pleasant places that you can be, because you're pretty much stuck inside right now. So if you can, have some nice soothing classical music or, playing and some candles lit, or maybe even like I'll cook, a pot of chicken soup just because I want to smell something. I just feel that, we can determine the life we want to have, especially now. It's a very difficult time, and keeping our mental state positive is really going to help our physical state. I think that, limiting what we watch on TV is imperative right now. I feel the situation is what the situation is, but sitting there looking at hearing all this negativity is only going to make our mind is very powerful. I am not even allowing my brain to think that I'm going to get this coronavirus. I refuse. Like, no, it's not coming near me. But if I keep hearing about all these people being sick and dying, well, it's just going to weaken my mind. So I turn it on for a little bit and then I turn it off. And I don't talk about it, only about that. I try to think about other positive things in the world. So anyway, back to the grief. I think the best thing that we can do to honor our loved ones that have passed on is to do something positive. And, you don't have to start an educational, you can do anything that that spurs you on, writing a book or a pod, everyone is different. For me, because Ken, who Ken was, I'm able to speak with you and different people, and it helps to honor him in that way. I want people to know what an amazing soul he was, and that I don't want people to lose their loved ones. I had met, funny enough, on Facebook, a woman contacted me about 2 years ago. She said, I heard your interview. I think my husband's got sepsis. What do I do? And I said, get him in the car, rush him to the hospital, and demand a blood test. And she did. The doctor said, well, we don't think he has all the signs of sepsis. We're not going to test him. And she said, just do it and she called me and I said, I don't care. Just have him do it. So they did, and he was septic. And they got him on the antibiotic, and he was saved.
Christine, let me interrupt you again, because not everybody has your kind of spirit. You are a very spirited and a very inspirational person. They have a lot to learn from you. Now, I am so happy that it's true, and I'm very, very pleased that you won't say no. You're teaching people something very important. If they think that there is something wrong with whomever, with their child or with their husband or with their friend, they have to just stand in place and say to the person who can possibly help them, I want help. And you have done that. And if you spread the word to people, a lot of people are going to live, as opposed to, of course, suffering or dying, and that is wonderful. Now, I want to get into a couple of things with you. You started this Pretty Girl Makeup, and you work as a celebrity makeup artist. How did you get started with that?
I, all my life, had just enjoyed making people look their best. My mom, when I was 8, my mother was diagnosed with brain cancer, and she was incredibly beautiful. And she, at the time, they'd given her so much chemotherapy and radiation, she lost all her hair and her skin was blotchy, and, she just did not look like herself anymore. I remember she was going out to dinner with my dad, and I said, Mom, let me make you up. I'll put your makeup on for you. And I wanted her to look like she used to and feel like she used to. So I didn't even know I had any makeup skills, but I managed to, even out her skin and brighten up her eyes and, help her put her wig on. And it was amazing, the transformation that my mother had. Like, her whole spirit changed once we did that. And I kind of kept doing that all my life. And then as I got older, I became an image consultant, and then I started doing, weddings and different people. And then I worked with some photographers. I don't even know how it began, but all of a sudden I kind of had a portfolio, and I would remember I drank a ton of water, and every time I would drink water, my lip gloss would come off, and it was driving me nuts. And I thought, I'm going to create my own lip gloss that stays on. And so I was on holiday in Hawaii with my family and some friends, and I had this one friend that our kids had, you remember that age when your kids finally can swim and you don't have to sit in the pool with them playing?
Oh, sure.
You could just take them, and it was like an amazing day. We were seated by the pool, reading our magazines, having a drink by the pool, and my friend Claudia said, honey, we're pretty girls. No one knows we're mommies for 5 seconds. And I started giggling so hard. And then I thought, oh my gosh, that's what I'm going to call my company, Pretty Girl, because as a mother and you work and we're tired, sometimes you just want to feel pretty for a second. And so I thought I was inspired by Benefit Cosmetics. I love that they had funny names for all their products. So I wanted to create my line with funny names. So my first products were Soulmates, Oh Honey, Love of My Life, Darling, Girlfriends, Rich Husband, Pretty Girl Lunch. Like I just named a bunch of funny about, being a woman and a girlfriend and, to kind of honor my friends when they're having a hard day and they reach for my lip gloss and just kind of laugh for a second, like, oh, private jet, and putting it on. Sometimes if you can make someone smile for just a few seconds, that's going to change their whole, demeanor. And so that's kind of how I started, my company. And then I was blessed to get agents. My agents, helped me to get jobs, like with Fox or Time Magazine. I worked, I did Condoleezza Rice and Ted Cruz and Journey and Metallica. And I mean, I've worked with some fantastic, amazing people, Bobby Flay, Tyler Florence. I've been so lucky to work with these amazing people that I get to have one-on-one time with, besides I get compensated really well. Someone sits in my makeup chair and I get them to myself for half hour, 45 minutes, or sometimes an entire day, depending on, if it's a TV show or whatever. And you really get to know someone so intimately in those short periods.
And I bet you find out that they're like regular people. But here's what I wanted to say to you. Not everybody who's had a lot of negativity in their lives like yourself, can turn something into something good, like gold. I call it gold. That sounds like what you did. It must be either your personality or something else. And I'm wondering, if you could give our audience a little advice from the standpoint of taking a situation or making a situation that wasn't good into something that is fabulous. How did you do that? Because people, after they experience what you experience, it's very hard. So I'm curious about that. How did you make your company? How did you create it? And what did it take?
Well, I think, it's funny. My friends make fun of me a lot because I'm like, feeling in a bad mood or grumpy feels so foreign to me. Like, I don't like this feeling. So I think that kind of helps me. I also think, as I said previously, I really believe that we have a choice whether to be happy or grumpy. We have a choice, and I choose to be happy. I choose to see through my eyes. I look at everything as beautiful. I mean, obviously there's things that are negative in the world, and I see them and I let them kind of go past. I'm able, as a makeup artist, part of my job is to make, like I did with my mother, that was like my first client, I guess. I have to make my clients feel good because they're going to be in front of a camera, and the way they're going to look best is if their energy is positive and good. And sometimes, I don't know what's going on in their life. Sometimes they want to talk. Sometimes they want me to talk. Sometimes they want to not talk at all. And my job is to make them feel as good as they look. So I will use aromatherapy oils. I will massage their hands if they have a headache. I bring them a cup of tea. Whatever it is that I need to do to make them feel good when they leave my chair is what I have to do. And that's a huge part of my job, besides obviously having good makeup.
Yeah, I bet you've experienced so much with these people and they're celebrities. And, when somebody hears that you work with celebrities, they say, Now I would like to be a fly on the wall. So that's what I'm asking you. If you had a chance to tell people a little story about one of your clients, I would love to hear it, and I'm sure they would too.
Well, the two that are coming to mind, I worked with Bobby Flay for the Food Network. He's a celebrity chef, and I had heard that he could be a little bit tough, and he was actually amazing. He was super funny and nice. He made me a cup of tea. He knew who my husband was, and he said, "You're married to Ken Flach?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "How the hell did you get that guy to marry you?" And I just laughed so hard. And I said, I often wonder how, I married him,
That's right. I was going to say that.
And so when I went home that night, I told Ken the story, and he just thought that he was so loved that Bobby Flay knew who he was and had said that, how did he get me to marry him? So that was funny. Isaiah Washington is the latest celebrity that I've worked with, and he was on Grey's Anatomy. He's lovely, but he's so funny. They start getting really used to you being around, and he would be like, "Christina, where's Christina? I want her here on set." And so it's so funny. The producer sent me a note the other day, because we would always joke like, "Christina, where is she?" So the producer the other day called me and said, "Oh my gosh, we're editing the TV show, and there's this one scene and that Isaiah's screaming for you." And I just laughed so hard. I'm like, well, I love that, they get attached to me and that they feel comfortable with me. It's great. I worked with Condoleezza Rice for Time Magazine. She was lovely. She came in. I went down to Stanford where she teaches, and she came in by herself. She's an avid golfer, as are my children. And so she wanted to talk about golf. And it's interesting. Every person I meet, Ted Cruz, here's a funny one. My agent called and said Ted Cruz needed grooming for a TV show when he was running for president. And I was not a huge fan of his at the time. And so I said, she's like, "Look, you're getting a full day. It's one person. Get over yourself." And I'm like, you're right. I'll go. So I went, and he ended up being so nice and sweet, and it really shocked me. And then 2 days later, he was out of the race. And so my husband joked. He said, "Yeah, what did you do? That guy, everything was going fine until he got in your makeup chair, and you cast some spell on him, and then he was out of the race." So
blame your makeup on it, huh?
Yeah, it was my fault that Ted Cruz was out of the race. But there's all funny stories with my clients. They're all great, and I do enjoy all of them. And that is definitely one of the blessings of my job, or I say gift with purchase, is that I get to spend time with people that you normally wouldn't get to spend time with. So it's very fun.
There must be something that we have to leave the audience with, Christina. There's something that I always say to my guests, this is the last word. I want you to give our audience the last word, because you've been involved with so many different things. This grief situation with your husband, which is very sad, losing your son, very sad, all these things, but you're a positive person, and I have a feeling that our audience is going to really appreciate what you have to say to wind up the show.
I wish everyone happiness in their life. I wish, everyone would try maybe something different. If you are grieving, maybe try meditation. There's some amazing apps that I use to help me sleep, because that was a difficulty that I had after Ken passed. There's one called Calm. There's one called Breathe, and they have, meditations for grief, or for, having a difficulty with your family or work or whatever. Exercise, and just decide that you want to be happy and love again. And just look at the world through different eyes. Just try that for a change. Try and do something for someone else. Play some music. Do whatever that you need to do. Maybe you need to change your diet. Maybe you need, there's just so many different things, but and just sitting, stagnant is not living, and it is not honoring your loved one. So that is my wish for everyone.
Well, my guest today has been the CEO and founder of Pretty Girl, and her name is Christina Flach. And boy, does she have a lot to discuss with everybody. Now, if people want to buy your makeup, and if they want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
My website is prettygirlmakeup.com. my email, if anyone would like to get a hold of me, is Christina, Christina, @prettygirlmakeup.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Christina Flach Makeup, and Pretty Girl Makeup. It's PrettyGirlMkup on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And I hope everyone has a beautiful, happy life.